Today I wanted to go over the initial setup on this out-of-the-car setup. This is going to be like the last day I'm working on this Haltech Elite 1500 before it goes in this Galant that we're putting together as a project car. So I figured I'd go over the last couple, the loose ends, literally the loose ends. And I've shown everybody this terminated harness. We're using a complete, fully terminated harness that's for a 4G63. This works on a 1G, 2G Galant. It'll work on Colts. It's built by Haltech to our spec. We're putting in a bunch of extras, which I'm going to kind of go over today. So the first thing, here's what we did for where we're going to mount this. We've got an Elite 1500 ECU screwed into the factory Galant glove box. We've got a 4-port CAN bus hub. We've got a single CAN bus wideband, and we've got a 4 EGT to CAN bus adapter. This one's not mounted yet. These little guys are fairly lightweight, so you can just mount them with double-sided tape, which is what's holding this one down. But the EGT I'm not going to actually mount until I run the EGT sensors through the back, which, excuse me, the sensors are already mechanically installed on the engine. We've got a 5-bar map sensor. We've got a 150 PSI sensor for oil pressure, exhaust back pressure, and fuel pressure. We've got a 3-port boost control solenoid that's already mounted and installed, vacuum lines hooked up, and just gets literally plugged into one of these wires that comes out the back. We've got a single wideband in the factory spot. We've eliminated the narrowband O2 sensor. We've got 4 EGT sensors, 1 per runner. Those were installed already. We have a video already up on those as far as putting those in the manifold. So the things we've got going on here, we've got a dual 12-position rotary knob set that we're using this for. This one's going to be launch RPM, and this one is going to be boost control. So for a street car, this is going in like literally a car that's going to get driven every day. It's not a nitrous car. It's not an automatic, so it doesn't need it doesn't need nitrous to stall it up or anything. This is going to like be a very basic like 16G stock motor street car. So for this, when you go to the track, you'd be able to just pop the glove box open, and we're going to actually make a overlay plate on here that'll have launch RPM and boost levels on here so that you can literally set this 20 pounds, 22 pounds, 24 pounds. Launch RPM's probably going to go from something as low as 3,500 RPM, and it'll go in like 200 RPM increments up to 4,500 RPM, something like that. Reasonable levels for a street-tired 16G car. So these connect back behind here. We've taken a hole saw, drilled a small hole in the back of the glove box. It's just large enough to fit the harness through. So we've got the 2 plugs to the ECU, and we've got this CAN bus plug that comes off of the harness at the ECU plugs. And the CAN bus harness, I've had a lot of people ask me about this, so kicking back into this. This CAN bus plug runs into the back port of this 4-port EGT, 4-port CAN bus hub, and then there's 3 additional ports. So 1 CAN bus hub goes to the wideband, the second CAN bus goes over to the EGT box, and then that brings us to the third thing. We're going to run, this is a street car. It's going to use the factory dash, the factory tack, the factory cluster. We're not going to use one of the fancy race pack dashboards. So in order to get gauges in this car, we're going to run this, it's a CAN bus plug on one end and an OBD2 plug on the other. So we're going to, once it's installed in the car, this is going to get plugged into this last open port on the OBD2, or on the CAN bus port. And then we're going to get a Wi-Fi OBD2 dongle to go in this plug. And then this can kind of get mounted under the dash somewhere where it's out of the way. And then you can use an iPhone or an iPad or any tablet device to you can make your own gauge layout. So you can use it in this car. It's just going to be simply like a boost gauge and a maybe you want to look at what the coolant temperature is. It's good for diagnostics. You can also run your check engine light stuff through this so that if you had a you have a problem with the ECU that's sensor's not reading correctly or something, you can you can go into here and like read OBD2 codes as well. So we've got that going on. This will go in after the glove box is in the car. Actually, the harness will just go through the factory spot. Let me show you some of the other stuff. I've got, in a prior video, we took the factory OEM engine harness, and we sort of separated the plugs that were for chassis functions, for like the factory gauges and for the windshield wipers, for air conditioning, which this car's not going to have air conditioning, so that got eliminated, and the factory key switch, the ignition switch. So we actually made this small little patch harness. It's like literally 4 plugs. 2 of them go under the engine compartment for the windshield wipers, and 2 of them, one goes to the factory dash, one goes to the key switch. So we've got 5 connections to make between this harness. Oh, and we also have this one single wire, which has got to get run to the engine for the factory coolant temperature gauge. So you have 5 loose plugs coming out of the Haltech harness under the dash. So we're going to go to this. It's literally 5 connections here, 5 connections here. One of them's for battery power for or ignition switch to boot up the ECU. You've got start switch. You've got DPO4 is going to run the factory tachometer. DPO1, digital pulsed output 1, is going to be the factory check engine light. And SPI2, switched signal pulsed input, is a frequency input. This is going to go to the factory speedometer that runs a read switch, and then that's this yellow wire coming out. So we've literally got 5 little connections to make here to put these in so that the factory dashboard is going to run the factory cluster is going to work. This isn't a race car, it's a street car, so I want the factory cluster to work. Even though, the tachometer may or may not be super accurate, this is just a car to drive around on the street. Okay, DPO4, this was going to be factory tach. Wow, I'm not used to doing this left-handed. All right, forget this. You don't need to see me crimp wires. Basically, you got 5 connections to make on the loose ends under the cabin. There's 3 loose wires that we're not going to use. They're 2 12-volt outputs, and one of them is a they're 12-volt outputs that accompany these digital pulsed outs. We're not using them since the factory devices that we're going to drive are already 12-volt powered from the chassis end. We're just literally putting the signals to them. And there's a single SPI signal pulsed in, basically a switched input that we could use for, geez, what could we use that thing for? A clutch switch, a brake pedal switch. If you wanted to no lift to shift, you could hook that up to the clutch pedal switch, and I probably will do that after it's been in the car, but it's not needed to get the car running. So that's where we're at. This is going to hopefully go in tomorrow. Hopefully the car's going to light and start and drive out of the shop tomorrow. Cool. All right, guys. Oh, forgot to tell everybody, we've got a YouTube channel now. So like to get some more subscribers. If we can get, I guess, 30 subscribers, 40 subscribers, something like that before the end of the month, we'll get our custom URL, youtube.com/performancepartout. Right now, it's literally just the youtube.com 1 2 3 4, a whole bunch of letters, whole bunch of numbers. So go onto YouTube, search for Performance Partout, find our page, subscribe to it. It'll do a lot of good to getting the thing up and running so that everybody can find it easily. So do me a favor and go subscribe to that.